All right. Thank you. All right. Here we go. Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, and those betwixt. I'd like to introduce myself real briefly. My name's Lain Kaplan. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a proud Jew, and I'm a transgender woman. I am Marvin and Teresa's kid and Ben's sister. You may remember me from 30 years ago when I was known as Lain Kaplan. I did my B'nai Mitzvah and confirmation with Rabbi Weiland here under this roof. I'd like to thank the name Eli for its hard work. That name saw a lot of hardship, and it helped me and preserved me and got me to this point. And now that name deserves to rest in blessed memory. I'm a linguist. I have a master's degree from Temple University. I've taught English as a second language to working with adults for almost 20 years. I started living as my authentic self full-time in February of this year, so a lot of things are still new. I'm wearing clothes that actually I think look nice on me, that actually give me a sense of peace and of being myself. I couldn't say that before. I came out in 2019 in Japan, or at least I tried. I was not able to transition socially or medically while I was there. I went to my doctor and I told him, and I said, doctor, I am a transgender woman. What can I do to, help move forward with, physically changing myself? And he said, go home. This was in Japan. And that being said, I persisted. I started hormone replacement therapy last year, and it has been completely life-changing. So tonight I'm going to talk about the challenges that trans people face in the United States and elsewhere, of legal challenges we face, social issues we face, and the steps you, as members of the Jewish community, and as well as our cisgender friends out there, I know there are people watching this and who will be watching this, and we can take steps to make our communities and our greater community around us safer and more equitable for everyone. So I do want to teach you a little bit about who the trans community is. Trans people are all ages, all ethnicities, all income levels, all educational levels, and belong to many religions and spiritual traditions. 2022 Pew survey said that as many as 1.6 of Americans identify as non-binary and or transgender. That is to say, they are not the gender that they were assigned at birth. I think it's really important to make a key distinction between sex, which deals with physical characteristics, and gender, which is a social construct that every society constructs to differentiate common social and economic roles. I'm going to be talking about gender tonight. There's a lot of complex concepts that Judaism, specifically in Talmud and later discussion, have involving bodies and sex, with at least 6 different genders that humans can be put into. Male, female, tumtum, androgynos, sari sadam, sari shava, and that the rabbis of antiquity knew that they hadn't gotten a whole picture of what humanity was. They were only one small part of a very big world. If you think about where Israel is, it's part of a land bridge between Europe, Asia, and Africa, and there are trade routes going through. So you would see people from all over traveling through their land and visiting and sharing meals with them. And they knew that their perception of what their society was only one small part of the picture. So, but that is all best suited to a study session some other day. This is telling you folks what I'm not telling you tonight. It's out there. So growing up, a lot of kids deal with awkwardness and a lack of feeling in touch with their bodies and their communities and their roles with their peers. And we all have moments of dissonance, of disconnection between their identities and personhood with the expectations and the norms that people, family, friends put on them. And, you know, here in the US, almost every kid with access to supportive parents gets to try out sports and, you know, maybe get out there and work a job, and they get to socialize at events and parties. And this is all happening as their bodies are changing over time, especially during puberty. Their brains and their cognitive functions are also developing with incredible flexibility, which I have observed as a teacher. I have worked with teenagers, a few kids, and not everyone does well adapting to these tasks as a kid or as an adult. I know that I was god awful at sports, and I definitely felt out of touch with my body all throughout my life. And as I was able to see a therapist as a kid, and I've continued to see therapists throughout my life, there was a subtle thing off. If you've seen the movie The Matrix, the first Matrix movie, the sequels are still pretty good, but I'm talking about the first one. There's Neo is told by both the bad guy's perspective and the rebellious perspective that there's a splinter in the mind, something that you know that's out there that is not, that you're not at peace with, that there's something wrong with yourself in the world. And that movie was made by two trans women, creating the best allegory that they could get and sell to a Hollywood producer to get to mass market. And there were so many articles for like the first 10 years before the people found out, oh, both of these directors are, these brothers are actually sisters. They're both trans women. And that was the narrative that they were not able to see. They didn't have that language at the time. And they're never, I want to get back to that survey for a second. I said 1.6% of Americans. If we look at people 21 and under, however, that percentage jumps up to 5%. And yes, a lot of the people that we're talking about as non-binary or transgender are also bisexual or lesbian or gay or another type of sexuality. And I can say that as part of queer discourse, there are people who are transphobic and they try to motivate, cis queer people to exclude trans people by saying that we're replacing, regular gay men and lesbian women, that trans men are just confused butch lesbians and trans women are just confused gay men. And that's nonsense. And it's designed to divide that community, our community. Besides, of the 30 trans friends I have, all but 2 are bi or gay or lesbian. That's nonsense. I myself am bi, but the sexual attraction is a different axis. It's a different kind of thing than gender. Both of these fall within the queer umbrella, to be clear. But a lot of cis people aren't really aware of that, and people are learning as more people are visible in the community, and people get uncomfortable about that. And so why are so many young people challenging gender norms these days? Because we have greater knowledge and there's more awareness. There's people who are out there being very visible. If Dylan Mulvaney of TikTok, and of course the whole furor over Bud Light advertising, and Laverne Cox, the actress, and Montana legislator Zoe Zephyr, and I don't know how many of you watch Jeopardy. In our house, it is a regular ritual. Amy Schumer, a proud Jewish trans woman, and our former Pennsylvania Secretary of Health, Rachel Levine, who is now in Washington working for the president. And I cannot tell you how much comfort and pride I had in 2020 and 2021 watching her calm, professional demeanor and her earnest voice telling people what they needed to do to stay healthy and safe in the Jewish tradition of pikuach nefesh. She is my favorite trans celebrity, and that's kind of nerdy to say. It's not especially cool, but there it is. There's a lot I'm skipping over here. I'm not going to tell you about the people who want trans people to drop dead. Although there is a huge amount of overlap between those people and people who want Jews to come to Jesus or to go to Israel, so we're out of their perfect, godly Christian nation's hair. I don't feel like getting into the haters or their motives. I do want to talk about what they're trying to do. We can stop that stuff. And we need to know how we as Jews need to recognize that everything that they are trying to do to my one community is the same as what happened to the Jewish community for centuries in Europe, culminating in the horrors in Germany and elsewhere 80 years ago. And there are Jewish people who are joining some of these conservative voices because they are upset with members of their community coming out. I was reached out to this week by a young woman who had been told that she's persona non grata in her shul. She's Haredi. She's currently deployed. I tried to reach out to her to see if she could need anything, and she wasn't comfortable accepting help at that point. But she was told by her rabbi that her soul is not one that fits with her community, and her wife had realized that this was not the life for her, and that they were not going to have a happy union. And that kind of story, I understand that kind of relationship of a marriage and finding out that you are not performing the role that you were told and raised to perform. That's really hard. There's no simple answer to this. I'm not, I can't tell people what to do. But that being said, a lot of these rabbis, especially in our egalitarian branches of Judaism, Reform, Conservative, Reconstruction, all the others, we are the most embracing group of trans people. That mitzvah the blessing that Rabbi Schwartz read earlier, that was composed by Rabbi Elliot Kukla, who was the first trans rabbi ordained by the Reform movements. He's a trans man. He's published numerous editorials, including in the New York Times. But throughout Jewish history, especially in Europe, families had their children taken away from them by Christian adults who wanted to have a child, and they wanted to raise them as a Christian. That is happening in the United States of America in a slightly different way. Parents of kids who are trans are having their kids seized from them and put in protective custody. Rabbi Daniel Bogard of St. Louis is one of the most outspoken leaders in that state to try to thwart and stand up to the legislature there that has taken away adult trans health care. Many states, this week, Louisiana is one of about 20 that passed laws forbidding health insurers from covering hormone replacement therapy and mental health care. So this is, I really felt, I had a great hesitation putting this in here, but never again means now. And this is a thing we have all heard so many times, and it's hard to see the greater community around us take it seriously right now as I say that. But we can still act. So please be compassionate and show up for the people who are being kicked around like a soccer ball these days. And, you know, trans people are the people who are most at risk. Of course, we are kind of the wedge in the door for reactionaries who will say, you know, once we get them out of our hair, it's time to end the Obergefell ruling by the Supreme Court that allows same-sex marriage. And, you know, I've spoken to a couple, you know, gay men and, you know, radical feminists who say that trans people aren't welcome. And I kind of channel, if you know, and pass over the four children narrative. There's the good kid, the bad kid, the simple kid, and then the one who's too young to ask it. And I reference the wicked kid, and I say, you know, Martha P. Johnson, bless her memory is a blessing to the queer community. If you were there at Stonewall, which is, you know, the queer version of being in Egypt, if you were there, would she have thrown a brick for you or at you? So that's one way when I'm talking with these people, my Judaism informs my speaking. And that one, you know, a lot of my queer Jewish friends, they love that line. It's a great line. And it's not really mine, it's really our traditions. So there's a lot of joy in being trans. I've talked about a lot of the pain and anguish, and there's a lot of pain and anguish to being Jewish in the United States. But there's a lot of joy as well. And there are so many rituals that I have helped build up to my daily life and with my family to help realize my authentic self. Things like rotating my earrings. These ones are way too big, I can't rotate them, but most of the time they're way smaller. But rotating my earrings just makes me feel great. Putting on nice clothes, putting on my pronoun pin. I wear it at work. You know, I work for, most of the last 4 years, I worked in a phone center. And now I'm working in Dixon City up in front of people doing tags and title handling, PennDOT's work for them. And when you're talking face to face to people, and I've worked hard to, you know, develop my presentation, people call me miss. People call me ma'am. There's one or two jerks who sir me. And on the phone, you know, talking to people on the phone, you know how crappy the quality is. I get called Elaine all the time. Because look, my name's weird. Nobody knows Elaine. And like, I like that name. Wayne, on the other hand, is a douche. But, you know, don't sweat if you make a mistake about pronouns. Don't sweat if you use a dead name accidentally. Just do your best the next time. These things happen. And if you can treat everyone with dignity and respect, not just queer people and trans people, but all of us, I mean, it's going to be so much easier to build that world that will come someday. Judaism talks about 3 things that keep the world upright: deeds of justice, deeds of mercy, and deeds of chesed, loving kindness. And I think that being who I am and being a trans woman has helped me recognize and try to promote those pillars as part of my daily life. Thanks so much for listening. I'll be happy to take questions at the ONEG about this. I hope you folks enjoy it. Thanks for your time, and Shabbat Shalom.